a playlist original.
Jay?
What are you doing?
And I need you to remember what I'm saying. This thing, it's gonna follow you.
Critics and audiences agree It Follows is the best horror movie in years.
Mom? No, it's me. Everything's okay.
Something happened.
You don't believe me.
It Follows. Rated R. Now playing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius, episode 13.
13, lucky number 13 for this episode today.
Yeah, we full discretion, we are recording way off our normal schedule this week because we had a long holiday weekend, Independence Day out here. I know for me, pretty much from Friday to Tuesday, I was doing something.
Yep.
And it was
Yes, sir.
yeah, and I kind of knew in the beginning. I was like, hey, I asked Owen if he wanted to like push it to Wednesday, and then even like the main show, it got pushed back. We were going to record Monday, and then Jackson told me he was secretly happy that I was like, no, let's not do it Monday, because he was still like recovering from like Canada Day and the stuff they were doing out there.
Lots of North America days today.
Yeah, a lot going on, but we've actually done one on a Thursday before when we had to.
Yeah. What was the one we did? I remember because it dropped like right on a Monday, and then
was it the Tucker and Dale one?
It might have been. All
I
I
feel
know
like
is
it
that
might have been that one.
It was a good week for it because we had like 3 episodes drop that week or something.
Yeah, it actually worked out, and this works out too because we had our Bling Ring one drop on Monday, and then the regular.
That was a good episode. I enjoyed that.
It was a lot of fun. It's weird, when you're recording some of these, you're like, I wonder if that went off pretty well, because it wasn't, that's not a particularly like deep movie or anything, right? But still like an interesting story, and like the true story is pretty interesting too. So I think kind of blending those two things made that episode pretty decent. And
I think it dives into a good amount of like human emotion and like interaction and manipulation and sort of turning back when it's a little bit too far. So I definitely, gave me anxiety when I was watching it, but
exactly. Yeah, and then also it was fun too because Jackson is just like, how is this really LA? Like, is LA like this?
You're like, yeah.
Do they talk like this? Like, yeah, like unfortunately, in some pockets of it is like this. So it was like a cool little like learning lesson for him too. But other than, I know I hung out with you a little bit this weekend, but other than that, like, have you watched anything new? Like, caught up on anything? What is new in your world for all of our listeners?
So I was telling you, dude, I have been on a Star Wars binge. I don't know what it was and what kind of sparked it, but like I have watched every single Star Wars within the last couple weeks. Like I watched the original trilogy, I watched the prequels, I watched the sequels, I watched it all. And then I watched Obi-Wan. Like I was just kind of like
so you went to the shows too.
I went to the shows too. Like couldn't get enough of the Star Wars, and I think it just kind of like hit a nerve where I was like, you know what, like I need to catch up and revisit these things. And watching A New Hope is very interesting because it kind of takes you back to like how significant this type of sci-fi was. Because like before, back in the day, like what did it come out, like 76 78
77 I think one of somewhere in there.
And like gosh, like the idea of Star Wars is just so genius and so new and so different than anything that had ever been done before,
right?
That you can, like, it's funny because you can tell there's some quick cuts when the lightsaber turns on and off where like it was just it's so kind of choppy, but it also works at the same time. And that just makes it even more exciting when you get into the later versions where CGI and all the actual effects can really come into play, and the Star Wars universe can actually be born. But no, I just had a really good time just kind of re-exploring those and really just diving into the Galaxy saga. And so it's been really good, and I've really enjoyed it, and honestly kind of just gives me a little bit more appreciation where, yes, I know that the sequels get a lot of hate and a lot of people don't like them a lot.
And the prequels too, man.
Even the prequels get a lot of hate. Gosh, the first one, after watching all of them, the first one's pretty bad. Phantom Menace. The pod race is amazing, but just like, God, it's pretty excruciating to get through. Attack of the Clones is tough too sometimes. Just with the
I think that one's tougher. I can't think of like, at least with the Phantom Menace and like the pod racing is cool, and then the last like 20-25 minutes, the whole like
true
Darth Maul Duel of the Fates thing is cool. I can't think of one moment in Attack of the Clones where I'm like, that is a cool scene. I can't think of like one that stands out.
Honestly, just the escape from the like sort of Coliseum, I guess you could say. Like, I think that's a pretty cool scene, like when the droids attack and then the Jedi get there. But it just really is astonishing because those two they're so heavily flawed. And then seeing Revenge of the Sith, which is to me the best Star Wars movie ever made, even though I know that you're a big Empire fan.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like it's just a great story to revisit that I really enjoyed, and that's kind of what I've been up to in my serial rewatching sequence.
Yeah. So when you rewatch them, do you start with the prequels, or did you go with the originals first and then kind of? I wonder how people watch them now.
So I actually started with the sequels because I hadn't seen them. I'd only seen them a couple times, like maybe once, maybe twice each, and I was like, like I haven't seen this in a long time. I kind of have a little bit of a Star Wars itch. I kind of want to scratch it. And like, let's just check them out. And I enjoyed them. The second one was awful. The Rise of Skywalker is just bad. It's not a good movie. But the first one and
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi and the last one, they're actually decently good movies. Adam Driver, it sucks because I just love him so much as an actor.
Yeah,
it's a struggle.
It's not a lot. Sometimes you can overcome bad writing, but like even the prequels, there are a lot of good people in those movies, and they are sabotaged by George Lucas. Really,
you've said this before.
Awful
George
writing.
Lucas, incredible universe builder.
So I was gonna
writer.
Like when you brought up like Star Wars, the original, like A New Hope, he's a great storyteller. I mean, there's a lot. It's not easy coming up with a universe like that. But he can't write like screenplays. Like his dialogue is really bad, and there's a big debate sometimes. Like, can you throw him in like the grand pantheon of like great filmmakers? Because technically, he made one great movie. Because he didn't direct Empire Strikes Back. He wrote the story. He didn't write the screenplay, and he didn't direct it. So he has Star Wars. He has A New Hope. So is that enough to consider him like one of our greatest filmmakers? Because he did create. I mean, he is responsible for creating this huge universe, and now, of course, he doesn't have anything to do with it anymore. But we wouldn't have it without it. Yeah, we wouldn't have it. We wouldn't have it without him. But yeah, it's always, I never know what to say about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think yes, because for what he did in 1977, or we'll have to fact check this, but like for what the time frame was and what he was able to accomplish is astonishing for that time.
Yeah.
So I think just in a sense of just The New Hope, yes, I think he deserves that credential. But then he's also been associated with, like, I mean, didn't Lucasfilms do Indiana Jones?
He's part of the Indiana Jones, and he's involved in that.
So
didn't direct them, but he's involved with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that he has an incredible mind and an incredible idea of what it takes to build. Like, I hate using the word universe because I automatically think Marvel.
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah, just like this Marvel cinematic universe, but it's like just creating like a storyline where there's multiple different sides to tell, like prequels, sequels, add-ons. Like, I think that he does a great job adding onto stories and building new ones. So I think he deserves the credit. He's a billionaire for a reason, mostly because of the merch. Have you ever seen the Star Wars documentary? It's really cool that he was like, yeah, I think people are going to want to buy Star Wars toys, so I want to cut of that. And
I think he's
off
Star Wars. Star Wars is like the first big example of the cross promotion merchandising thing, and he saw it. A lot of people didn't see it the way he saw it, and good on him because he was right. Because it continues to be a big part of the financial windfall for Star Wars is their merchandising. I watched this thing called, I think it's called Icons Unleashed. It's on Vice, and they talked about all of the Star Wars movies up until Revenge of the Sith, and I've talked a lot of smack about the prequels. I felt a little bad watching it because he was passionate about them though. Like he thought he had some really good ideas. He really thought that Jar Jar Binks was going to like change the world. I mean, he really thought it was going to be a cool, fun character, and then critics hated Jar Jar Binks because they were
Not
like,
just
oh, it's
critics, but the masses.
everyone. I mean, I guess children might have liked Jar Jar Binks, but I think the criticism of those movies really hurt his feelings. Like it seemed like it really got to him in a really significant way. So then I kind of felt bad. But I guess the good thing, like anything with like time, because the sequel trilogy, people judge those movies a little harshly. People have gone back and watched those prequels, and they're like, they're not as bad as I remember them. So like it all comes full circle. And a lot of people, will say about those movies. For a lot of people, Phantom Menace was their first Star Wars movie in theaters. So if they grew up with it, they love it a bit more than some of the rest of us. Like I know why you probably like Revenge of the Sith. I mean, I like it. I think it's the best of the prequel trilogy. I mean, it'd be kind of hard to fuck that up. There's a rich story in that last one that it'd be really hard to screw it.
Is just like, but it's done so well. It's done so well.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem rushed. It doesn't seem like they're taking advantage of the situation of they know the story. I don't know. It's like I understand why he's so passionate about it, because like he had this whole story built for the original trilogy,
right?
But there's just so much to tell to how you get there, and like it's one of the main reasons and sort of great examples of like I need to know more. I need to know their backstory. I need to know kind of where they came from, and I think they describe it pretty well. And so yeah, I think that Star Wars is a great example of a universe that was built kind of by mistake. Like I mean, the movie almost didn't get made.
Yeah. I mean, this is no like. I mean, he had ideas, but definitely, a lot of Hollywood almost laughed him out of town when he was like, I really want to basically make like a space opera that's kind of got like that kind of has like hints of like a Western a little bit. Like there's all these different kind of other genres kind of blending in with it. He really had a really funky idea for that time period, and everyone was like, yeah, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it did. So credit to him on that. And like I said, the prequels, I think people appreciate them a little bit more now than they before. And now they just shit on like the newer ones because they're newer and they're there and they pretty ripe for criticism. I told you of the new ones, even though the story takes place before A New Hope, Rogue One is my favorite of the newer ones that we got.
It's crazy how that one just kind of came out of nowhere. Like I don't even remember any promotion for it, and I remember it just kind of like came out, and it's by far like one of the best Star Wars movies. Like it is fantastic,
and a good example. And a good example that like you don't really need, because I think a lot of people think that sometimes I think they're going to do it more now, but they were afraid to like not make movies with the characters that and like you're associated with. And I think that movie proved that you could make one that's good where you don't know any of those people. I mean, you have the Darth Vader like cameo and stuff in the movie, and and it was really cool. But like you don't know any of those characters, and it's crazy when you're watching Rogue One. You're like, this has to end on a dour note because they can't win. So
there's
like,
once
you have that,
what's gonna happen.
Yeah, once you have that realization, it's like, oh, this is gonna end pretty depressing. Much like Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, in that same documentary, I didn't realize this. I know a lot of people consider it, myself included, the best Star Wars movie now. But when it came out, it got its fair share of criticism because of how it just ends. Where it's bleak. There's no resolution. You find out that big revelation about Darth Vader and Luke. Han Solo's frozen to carbonite. It's such a sad ending because like the heroes lose, and then it's over, and then it's over. And this is 1980. There's no internet to tell you that they're making another one. So you're just like, oh, all right, guys.
Damn. It's like, all right, I guess the hero's lost.
Yeah, I can't imagine being during that and being like, what the fuck? But I mean, I think it's solid. I mean, it's hard for me to top that one. I can actually watch that one on its own without watching the rest of them.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, it definitely has Lando's a good character, and it's definitely a staple in the universe.
Yeah.
But what about you, man? What you been watching?
I think I told you I watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary.
Yeah,
on Netflix. That was really good. I mean, I think I mentioned it to you. I mean, it's just so cool to watch. It's like he really came here wanting the American dream, and then he got it, and that's the best thing I could say about it. It's he worked hard to get where he's at today, and it's split up into 3 parts. It has his like bodybuilding career, and then his acting career, and then his career as a governor of California. Like it's just crazy that he went through all these different phases of life in this crazy industry and got through it. You know, he had some like controversy, but even he got through that okay. Like he had the illegitimate son with the maid, but then you know him and his wife broke up, and then now they are perfectly fine. They are really
Amicable.
good. Yeah, they're friends, and like he has a good relationship with both of his kids, with Patrick and Catherine Schwarzenegger. Like he has a good relationship with Joseph, who was the kid he had with the maid. So
Yeah.
they all consider each other family. Like it's kind of crazy how he
And his
got through
daughter
that.
married Chris Pratt, so like
That, yeah, everyone's good.
keeping it in the acting family.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think about all the great movies he made. I mean, he made some clunkers too, but
Do
there's
you
some
think that
classics.
would you like what echelon would you put Schwarzenegger in? Because it's like he had a serious run, but even when I watch some of those movies back, it's like, I mean, Terminator's got to be his best for sure. But like,
Yeah,
besides that, like, would you consider him to be like a good actor? I don't really know any other way to really say it besides that.
I used to like struggle with this because it's easy to make fun of him, Greg. You know, everyone can do their own little like Arnold impression. There's a
Get to
lot
the
online.
chopper.
Yeah, everyone has their thing, right? I think in certain movies he knows exactly what he needs to do. Like I watch something like Predator. I don't really care that he doesn't need to be excellent. He just needs to. I mean, he plays action roles well, and like that is his niche, so it works. If you watch something like the first Terminator, where he's bad and he's not the good guy, he does a lot without saying much, and I think he
It's
deserves
his presence that's scary.
Yeah, he deserves a lot more credit than that. And then even in the second one, when he's good, I think you also have to kind of know how to do what he's doing to make it legitimately solid performance. Like you feel for his relationship with John Connor, and it's not just on Edward Furlong's end; it's on his end because he's learning from this kid too. As you know, this kid that he has to protect.
Yeah.
So you know, I think in the grand scheme of things, I would consider him a good actor. He's also funny. I mean, he has some pretty good comedic chops. Kindergarten Cop is great.
Dude, I still haven't seen Fubar. Still haven't seen Fubar, but that looks like he's really funny.
I haven't watched it either. Yeah, he's always had a really good sense of humor. Yeah, he's not gonna win.
I'll put him in this category of like, it's like there's actors and then there's like expendables actors. Where
like
Stallone and Van Damme and like all of these.
The one thing that Stallone can say, because of Rocky, he has Oscar love, and then like he was nominated again when he was in Creed. So I mean, I always used to compare them because I felt like they're both the kind of same type of actor, but
very similar.
But Stallone, I think, could possibly show more range than Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger also hasn't been given the opportunity to show a ton of range. I mean, unless he'd ever wanted to.
I think he shows his comedic range more than Stallone.
Then it's there. Yeah, he does, definitely, for sure. I think he's fared a lot better in comedies than Stallone has. And then action movies, it's you know, pick your poison. Do you prefer Rambo over Predator or Terminator? Or, you know, it depends on
like sci-fi versus like regular war movie kind of thing.
Yeah, and of course in real life they've had this kind of back and forth, you know, who's better kind of banter, and they're really good friends. But yeah, in the 80s it was like, who do you pick? Like, which one is your favorite? And I think I have a slight edge movie wise with Schwarzenegger though. I like his stuff a bit more.
I mean, I even watched, I think I told you, I watched the first Rocky, and it's like, God, it's dated, man.
It is.
It's like, it was a little tough to get through. Just so like, I think there was a lot of like, I don't know, I got a huge sense of a little bit of a toxic masculinity from the Rocky character, just from like how aggressive he is towards the woman in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely the time period where that would be the case.
And the time period where it's just kind of like, hey, like it was a little creepy kind of watching it back now.
Did it make you not want to watch the rest of them? Like, where you're like, like, I want to see how the rest of the
it did a little bit. It did a little bit.
I feel that. I haven't watched all of them in so long. I've seen all of them, but it's been a while since I've sat down and actually watched all of them. And I thought I would with like Creed, but like that's like its own separate thing
very
now.
Different.
It's very, very, very different. And then other than that, I watched what we're covering tonight.
Same here. I can't wait to talk about it.
I know. Guys, I finally picked a horror movie. And
guys, this is a monumental moment back to the blockbuster. We have been talking about this for like, I don't want to say years, but like we've been talking about this for feels like at least a year.
It feels like it. So what I did when I was like trying to pick it, instead of being like, all right, I have to pick one that's really, really scary or like all that, I just pick one that's good and one that has like something to say. And this one, I think does. There's like there is some stuff that is genuinely like creepy in it, but it also has some really decent like social commentary in it too.
Yeah.
And I'm happy I picked it. Usually we hadn't been talking about the movies before we get on here, but you just exchanged one text with me earlier that was like movie was sick, by the way, and I was like, all right, good. It landed well.
It
Landed
landed
well. All right, so I'm gonna tell everyone what the movie is. It Follows. It's a 2014 horror film written and directed by David Robert Mitchell. It stars Maika Monroe, Keir Gilchrist, Daniel Zovatto, Jake Weary, Olivia Luccardi, and Lili Sepe. And it is about a young woman who is pursued by a supernatural entity after a sexual encounter. The movie debuted at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival, and it is considered by many critics to be one of, if not the best horror movie of the 2010s. It also was a financial success, grossing $23.3 million worldwide on a $1.3 million budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie, man. I had absolutely no idea what to expect. I'll tell you this. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And I was really, really excited to turn it on and watch it because I love your taste in what you everything you've picked has always been good. And I will say, we're throwing it back to some of the early episodes. This is a coming of age story, my man.
It is. There's some mix. Yeah, there is some stuff. It really is. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Mixed in with all the horror. It is.
Yeah.
There's a coming of age style here.
I just love the way it's shot. There's so many interesting camera shots and angles that I am very interested to hear your opinion on, because like just to even start, like there's a lot of shots that are kind of like looking up in the sky.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what you think about that, because obviously the horror and the threat is coming from the ground by the person that's walking towards them. So yeah. I'm wondering why there are so many shots that are kind of looking up. I'm wondering what you think about that.
Oh, it's like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, so director David Robert Mitchell, he was really heavily influenced by George Romero, who did like, Dawn of the Dead, Living Dead. But even more so by John Carpenter. He cites Halloween as like a huge influence, and there are a lot of shots like that in the original Halloween. A lot of it is to kind of give this like kind of false sense of like serenity a bit, where everything feels like it's kind of okay, and then brings you back to a more grounded situation where you're not safe anymore. Yeah. So he uses a lot of wide angle like lenses in the film. There's a lot of shots that don't even look like they should appear scary, but they just are, because there's just this like stillness to what's being seen. Yeah. Like even the opening shot of just like the street, and it's just kind of quiet until the girl kind of runs out of the house and is kind of running from something. If you were to compare like side by side shots of John Carpenter's opening daytime shot for Halloween and that shot, they're almost the same. So you can tell that he is like heavily like influenced by him and what these kind of compositions actually mean. Like, I want to give this sense of maybe you should be looking at every part of the screen, because like something could be coming from like anywhere.
That's what I kept doing.
And like that is what the feeling you get when you're watching it. You don't really feel safe when you're watching it at all.
Never.
Like they're like the tension's like always high, even though there are a lot of quiet moments where there's like not a lot going on. There's just people talking, but there's this sense of like foreboding in almost every single scene once you realize what is kind of going on. And that's what I like what he does, like with the camera. He makes you feel like you're there experiencing this with him, but that whole feeling of like you don't feel safe when you're watching it. Like something could come out from anywhere and get to you. But I mean, did you have a different take on like kind of shots from above and like what they might have meant for you while you were watching it?
I was just like, I just kept having a sense that something was going to come out from the sky. And I was just kind of like, okay, like, is there something else that I'm missing? Like, is there a reason that like people keep looking up towards the sky? Like, is there something that's out? I do see now what you're saying, where it's like a shot of like the blue sky with the trees, and just kind of seeing like the sense of this is peace here. Whereas as soon as you look back down, this is where the action is and this is where the danger is. But one of the things I love about the movie too is that a lot of the great shots that I felt were just from the reaction of what's her name?
The
The
lead,
reaction from Maika Monroe.
Oh, Jay. Yeah, she plays Jay. Yeah.
Where you can tell she sees something. And like
Yeah.
it's just like that moment of sort of like it's a little bit of trepidation, like she's searching, she's feels a little bit safe, but she's always on edge. And then she sees something and she's like, oh shit, that's it. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming.
Yeah.
I also loved the relationship between all the kids.
Yeah,
and
that's
like
one of the best things I think about it.
I think it's fantastic. I love sort of like their very realistic conversations that are very like nonchalant and they don't really mean a lot, but then when you can tell they care about each other deeply.
Right.
And obviously you can see it by their actions as well. Just like the way that they go out of their way to do things. They're there for them. They're in the hospital when certain things happen.
Yeah.
But gosh, dude, I will tell you, like, it was frightening. There were some moments where there was one moment where I legitimately looked away and was like, I was like, I know it's coming, and there's no chance that I'm watching.
You're not watching it. Not watching it. Yeah. There, mentioning what, because you just brought it up, mentioning the friends. What I like about it, because usually in a movie like this, you have a character like Jay where it's like there's something after me, I see something, there's something wrong, and everyone would dismiss it like, oh, you're crazy. They do that a little bit, but then they kind of are like, something is up. She wouldn't be acting like this if like it was nothing. So they still throw in like their full support behind her. Yeah. And I think that's interesting too, because like I'm like, if this was a real situation and my friend was telling me like, and they really believed it, I mean, I don't see it. But if they were like, there is something after me, they mentally are feeling this presence or whatever it is, do I dismiss it, or it feels so real to you, like your emotions are so real, like, or do I just believe it because you believe it? And I thought that was like a really cool thing that they were like, we may not understand it, but like there's something up, so we're not going to leave you alone. And I thought that was a cool dynamic between all of them that you don't really see a lot in movies like this. There's always someone trying to tell you how like crazy you are and like nothing's happening.
Yeah, I also think that like it's a good mix of them being like, hey, like we're here for you. And like, I mean, she got dropped off by this guy. They saw her get basically dumped onto the street and the guy peels away. Yeah. Like, wouldn't that put some sense of insecurity in you as well and be like, hey, what the hell happened? And you can see how distraught she is. You can see how upset she is. And she tells you the story and you're like, I mean, am I supposed to just like disregard all that and say that like you're crazy?
So did you look into the movie at all before you watched it, or did you just watch it?
I just hit play, man. I just hit play. Okay.
So like so when they got to like the aspect of like how it follows from person to person, what did you think of that? Because that has been a big talking point about the movie since it came out, that about what it says about because it's basically like an STD wrapped in the chain letter. You have to
my god,
because you have to like keep it going. And then like I also love that there's no like, even though you might sex with someone else, it doesn't really save you either, because if that person gets killed and then it just goes back to you. But yeah, I was wondering what you thought when that part of the plot kicked in. You're like, oh, this is like really interesting way to sell this.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really hit me until, I mean, first of all, does this guy have chloroform just like in the back of his thing? like is he just carrying around toxic chemicals or something? Because like I could tell he was doing something. I knew something was going to happen. Like there was obviously going to be some.
It was too quiet. Break. That's another good example.
Quiet. She's talking. Like, he's not responding. And then as he's getting in the car, I see his arm. Like his arm's not fully in view, and I was like, oh, he's about to like stab her or something. Like something's going to happen. Yeah. And like at that moment, like. It's crazy because the action that he takes, you're like, dude, why do you need to go to this extent to do this kind of thing? But it only takes the rest of the movie to realize that like he is honestly helping her in a sense.
Yeah, and
even though she's the victim and he's like he chose her as like the next mark. Like at the end of the day, he does like give her enough information to help
beat it. Try to beat it.
Yeah, to give her a way out.
It's something weirdly unsettling when he has her tied to the chair, and he was like, "I'm sorry, I had to do this, but I had to show you so you would believe it." where he like you wouldn't have if I just told you this, you wouldn't have believed it.
Does that make him a
Does-
good guy?
well, he had to. Well, it's interesting because I think when I first watched the movie, I thought like this guy's an asshole. He like passes on to her, but he passes it on to her, and he could have easily been like, but he also needs her to keep it going too, because like if she gets, if she happens to get killed, then it'll just like come back on him. So him explaining it to her is not him
He's
really
saving
being
his
like,
own ass.
Yeah, he's not really being a good guy, but
he's like, sleep with someone else, sleep with someone else,
sleep with someone else, sleep with someone else, and like that's why I think it's just so funny. Like that's the commentary, and it's like you have to in order to like.
No, I think what you're saying about like the way that it's passed, I think it's a very interesting type of story, because like to me it seems that this being and this sort of like supernatural entity, that is also what they get off on. So I mean, like, when you see I guess I'm jumping ahead, but like when you see spoiler alert, when Greg dies, like she's basically like humping him and like kind of like using and like doing that to an extent where like they die. So as soon as I saw that, I was kind of like, okay, like this is part of the spirit itself, is the fact that sex is a part of it. And so I think that ties into the story well. It doesn't make it any less scary. It actually makes it more intimate, because in order for you to pass it along, you have to do it with you have to share an experience with someone that is extremely intimate and extremely special to a lot of people. So it's like, I think that made it even more significant, because it's like, let's just say that this happened to somebody who has like a wife or something like that. It's like, I mean, do you have sex with your wife? Do you have like all this kind of thing? So I think that it really, really shows how, like, do you trust someone enough to give them the curse? And in order to do this, where it's like, you don't believe me now, but like, let's have sex, and then I promise you'll see some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is real. And so it's like, there's a lot of interesting moments that need to happen. And gosh, I don't know. There was a lot of nudity. And this is why I think that Can must have eaten it up.
I also think it's the only real reason it's rated R, because it's gory. I mean, there are moments that
there's no gore.
You do see the opening scene where the girl's leg is like
that was
broken.
I was like, whoa, what am I in for?
Yeah, there's not like a ton of it. Like there's not like, you don't really, the body count's really low. Too for a horror movie. But yeah, I think the R rating is for all the full frontal nudity that you get from the entity, which what I like too is that there are rules for it. I also love that they don't explain what it is. I'm glad that there's no like scene in the library where they go find a book and they're like, oh, what is this thing?
This is something from back in the Egyptian days. The tomb that was open. It's like, all right.
I've been like, okay, that's stupid.
It is what it is. It's following you, and you just got to watch out. But I also love what Hugh said too, where he's like, listen, it's not dumb, it's slow. Right. And that's slow. That's the only thing that you have that you can do against it. Like, no matter what, it's gonna walk to you, but it has to walk. So like, it's gonna get to you eventually. You can put some distance ahead and put some distance in between it, but it is gonna find you eventually. And like that, I think, was a great way to say it was kind of like it's kind of like Walking Dead style, where it's like the zombies are slow, they're not gonna run after you,
right?
But they're still
when they catch you,
they're still when they catch you, you're done. So it's like, but I really liked the way that some of them changed, like the way that it changed into certain characters. Like some of them were legitimately terrifying. Like I think there was two scariest moments. The one was when she is in her room, when like the window in the kitchen's been broken, and she's like, and everyone's staying over. Yeah. And then is it her sister?
Yeah. One of them.
She played Yara. So Yara's like, okay, like she's knocking on the door to come in, and she's like, don't open the door, but it's her. Opens the door, and then, dude, that like tall
one right behind her,
sunken eye, dude. My God, dude, that gave me fucking chills. I jumped for sure. That was one of the scariest moments in the movie, man. That was freaky.
That one got me, and then the one where it's like, I think the first one where she's in class or something, and she sees the old person across the street, basically. And it's like looking at her and then like walking towards her from outside. And then the music is just really good too. The music sets a serious mood in this movie. And then when she goes and she leaves and she's just in the hall, and then the old person is there again, walking towards her, and she yells out like, kind of like, hey. And then those two girls that are standing there clearly don't see it, and they just say hello. And she's it's just the music builds and builds as it's like her eyes are just wide open, like just walking towards her. Yeah, the way they did a lot of that was really good.
About walking slowly and quietly that is terrifying, because like it's not like some crazy alien that is gnashing its teeth and being really loud and like you can kind of hear it coming. Like the scene on the beach when the girl's walking towards and she just has her back to her. Yeah, like it's like look around, say something. Like, and these people can't see her. Yeah. So it's like that was inherently terrifying for sure.
That one was creepy too, when she grabs her hair and then the hair just like goes.
I don't understand. That's the one part I was just like, okay, why did she grab the hair? Why didn't she go right at it? Like, what was the point of that?
Yeah, well, I wonder if she needs to like you said, how she kills, how it kills Greg. Yeah, where it is, it feels like it is like
a sexual
encounter. Yeah, I wonder if it has to be that in order for it to like really, for it to happen. Yeah. Because you're right. It does seem like she could have easily just killed her right there. I have some people that were like, one of my friends that saw the movie, he was like, well, is that part of the rules that like, because that thing physically hits Paul, like knocks Paul away. Yeah. So even though they can't see it, I guess they can feel like whatever is happening. They feel like they don't make the rules that clear when it comes to how much contact entity can have with other people who aren't like, I guess, infected. That sounds like the wrong word to play it.
Like you said, it's kind of like an STD, so they are.
Yeah. So I guess there is some ambiguity there of like how much it can do to other people. But that seems freaky too, just watching her hair get pulled up and there's nothing there. And when Paul goes to grab her and he just gets thrown like out of nowhere. Yeah. And then he has like the scar on his stomach. So clearly something touched him. And and there's tension in that scene too, where they go and hide and she gets the gun and she's shooting at it. And then Greg is out there like, hey, stop shooting. Because like I thought when I first saw that he was
shooting, there's someone in the way. Yeah. Every time that they're, no matter when a gun is used, there's someone in the line of fire. I'm like,
I thought she was going to shoot Greg by mistake. I was like, that's going to be the scene, but they don't think that's not how it happened. But like,
it's like The Strangers all over again. It's like, shooting someone that you
love. And I love because he's like, just please stop shooting.
Yeah. But also, this guy just has like a fucking beautiful ass beach house, just like ready for use.
Of course,
that's pretty nice.
Pretty nice. Yeah, Greg's not a bad dude.
Yeah, where's the set? Do you think? I think I saw Pennsylvania.
I think they shot it in. I think I want to say Michigan. I just want to make sure. I don't know if it's technically set there in the movie.
So I think I saw.
But yeah, they shot it in Detroit, Michigan. And one of the characters mentions 8 Mile towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
So what an interesting place to like set your horror film, because I don't know if like
that is like during summer because everyone's like swimming and stuff like that too.
You know what actually moment gets me, and it's earlier in the movie, and it's before you know what really is going on. It's when they go, Jay and the guy go on the date, and they're kind of like picking different people. Like, oh, like
I love that. Like, that was actually
who do you want to be? That was really, I thought that was really cool. It's so creepy when he's like, what about the girl in the yellow dress? She's like, what girl in the yellow dress? And he like points, and that's your first sense of like, other than the opening scene, that like something else is going on. I thought that actually gave me the chills a bit, because like watching him get so like scared once he realizes that, oh, she doesn't see it. Like, oh, now it's here and it's coming after me. And like, he knows he has to do this a lot quicker than he planned on it. I kept wondering, I guess I can ask you too, if you knew this is what you had to do to make it, not kill you, would you do it?
Would I pass it along?
Would you pass it along?
Oh gosh, man. Yes.
100%. I think so too. But I would try to be like, I would do what I could to be like, hey, let me explain this to you. And
hey, so by the way, we just had sex. First of all, that was great.
That was great.
You're great. You're amazing. But at the same time, it's like, you know what? Now a evil force is going to follow you for the rest of your life. So have sex again. We're not monogamous. Go for it. Do your thing.
Yeah, I think most people would. I mean, I think you would be particular about who, like, that's why I like, because clearly Paul has a crush on her. And the reason why I think Greg is chosen initially is because, like, he seems like he can handle what will come at him.
Well, and also Paul, because they had sex before.
So and like Paul, she's like, no, he's nice, and like I don't want to do that to him. I kind of like that she's hesitant to do that to him. Put him in the line of fire. But I don't know if I could. If it was someone I cared about, I don't know if I could do that. I mean, it would have to be a stranger. I don't know. I don't know. But also, it's really a tough one.
The way I'm thinking about it too, it's just like, I mean, they already had shot the thing. So it's like once you've shot it, I mean, they only hit him in like kind of, I guess, like the neck or like the collarbone-ish area. So it's like they hadn't really tried to execute it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the main thing would be like, can I kill it?
Yeah.
And I think that their idea seemed great with the pool, but then like that scene was a little interesting for me because like as soon as they, I mean, it obviously didn't work.
No,
so like, everything that they set up was just a failure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could tell. And she said, "Oh, I don't want to tell you what it looks like. It's because it was her dad."
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
that was
I was right in that, right?
Yeah.
But like, gosh, can she just swim? Like, can she just swim away? Like, she's just like putting her head up, and this thing's chucking TVs at her. Like, just like, I'm just swim away, man. Get out of there, and then you can. Yeah. But like, that was another scene that I wanted to ask you about. Was like the it reminded me of The Shining, where it's like just the blood filling the pool.
Yeah, the pool.
What was that about? What was the significance? What do you think the purpose of that was? Like, because to me that seemed like death, or that seemed that either death or rebirth. Like, I don't know.
I feel like it was like death that was spreading. Like, I mean, like it really like, and then the fact that, you know, of course they're playing with the whole like what you can see and what you can't see kind of thing as well. But yeah, I got that impression too, that it felt like it was just death kind of spreading. Like, I mean, there's the cool thing about a movie like this is there's all these visual motifs that are in it that are open to interpretation, I guess. And I think this movie has a lot of it, just a lot of like little moments that you have to like pay attention to. And even like in the way people speak to each other. I love that, like you said, the friends talk to each other in a way that it doesn't feel like movie speak. Like it feels like your actual like real conversations that they would have.
They're like messing around, but then they become serious. They're like, "Hey, like, are you okay? Like, I'm worried about you. Like, I'm actually really like, invested in what's going on."
Like when they said they wanted, the first time they're asking, like, you know, do you want us to stay over? And Paul's like, "Oh, I can sleep over." And she's like, "No."
Lock your door.
Yeah, lock your door. She's like, "No, well, you have to be worried about him like humping your leg." And like, there's still like this kind of witty like banter between them, but like also, I mean, like,
you're still what, like 19 years old, 18.
Yeah, 19, yeah. They're like, they know this is like serious, you know. But it's still, you know, they clearly have.
But I love how it switches in an instant.
Yeah.
Like, it becomes two friends talking, like when Paul's on the couch and Jay is also there, and like they're kind of like flirting a little bit, talking about like when their first kiss, and like you're thinking like, oh, like could something happen here? Like I think they both kind of like each other a little bit, and then the glass breaks and it's immediate. Like now there's terror. Now there's
tension.
Now there's something that's going on, and it immediately switches. But God, dude, that tall, sunken-eyed motherfucker, man. That's
the scary. So when I first saw the movie, I didn't see this in theaters, by the way. I saw it when it came out on Blu-ray. So I watched it at home alone for the first time when I saw it, and I knew about the plot, but didn't know about any. I didn't know about any scenes, like what was the scary moment in it or anything like that. That was one of the first ones that like. I felt like I leaned back like while I was watching, like, what the fuck is that? Because you don't expect it at all, because like you're expecting when the door opens that, oh, maybe not, maybe there is some kind of misdirection, like usually in horror films, like, oh my,
right, he just looms above, and I was like, oh,
and she freaks the fuck out.
Well, because like just like you had said, like it's smart, it's gonna use other people to open the door.
And then there was that. The other creepy one was that feral looking little boy one that like with like that came through like the little hole. Like,
that's the one I turned my eyes away.
I was like,
they zoomed in on this hole, and I was like, something's gonna.
And you're like, something's coming out of it.
I was like, absolutely not, absolutely not.
Yeah, that one was creepy, and even the fucking. I mean, it's just a strange image, but like still, the naked dude sitting on the roof, like when they're driving.
Well, also like the naked girl who's like pissing herself.
Yeah, that was another one. Yeah,
that one was just like. That to me is like a definitely like sort of a good horror moment where it's not like it's not like a full like, oh gosh, someone's getting their eyes gouged out. It's like this is like a moment where it's like legitimately disturbing, where it's like, what am I looking at? What is happening? This person's in the middle of my house and like they have no regard for themselves. Like it's disturbing. It really is. And like that one is that was a fucked up moment.
Yeah. And kudos to the director for only having what I would call one cheap jump scare moment in this movie. And it's when she's in the bathroom and the ball hits the window.
Dude, that made me jump so hard.
Maybe jump again
too.
Oh my God. But that's like the only real cheap jump scare in the movie.
And then the guy hanging outside her window is just like a local perv or something, like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
local kid, that the ones that were spying on her in
I'm
the
a
pool
spot
or
here in the
something.
pool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They're just checking her out, I guess.
Yeah. Dude, that scared the shit.
Yeah, because it's just, again, this movie does a good job of utilizing just quiet and like, I feel like something's about to happen, but
Yeah.
that scene isn't framed in a way where there's something looming, like, oh, like I wonder if I should be looking out for something.
Well,
Definitely not expecting the ball to hit the window.
No. The whole thing is just anticipation, and I think that's what
Yeah.
was so good about it. It's like, and like you said about the shot, where there's so many good wide angles where you really feel like you have to be looking at every single part of the screen and every
Right.
single shot, because in some you just see like a person walking. And I think like Hugh says it the best, or Jeff, I guess his real name is. It's when there's just like that girl walking in the park.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you see her? Does everyone see her? And they're like, yeah. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Okay, great.
I thought that was the funniest part of the movie. That
was funny, because it's just like he's all nervous.
At the same time, like if I was Jay, like I know you're dealing with this now, and like you kind of have to get over it, but like, wouldn't you not want to beat the shit out of this guy? Like,
oh yeah,
they're kind of buddy with
instead of having a conversation, like, oh,
yeah, they're like, oh, let's all sit down, have a little drum circle, and talk about this.
Yeah,
like,
that's true, because
it's like,
even
why wouldn't you just like tie him up and do the same thing you did?
You'd be pissed off because this wasn't some long-term like boyfriend of hers. Like, this wasn't like true love or like someone she was dating for a while. This is just some new guy. And if I was the friends, I mean, I think maybe they should have shown that a little bit more. I would have been pretty upset by bringing on her. But
Yeah.
I guess the excuse is like they don't quite know if this is true yet.
Mhm.
But still, he did something to her that clearly messed her up. So yeah, the whole like
tied her up and gave her a curse. So I would be pretty.
Dude, the scene where he's like, I love how they use the camera in the scene where he ties her up to a chair and he's like moving her around.
Yeah,
to get closer, and then he like takes her to the edge, and you just see the naked girl at the bottom, and you're like, what the, like, it's funny because like you saw the opening scene, and you're like, all right, something is up, but you still don't know exactly what's up. And that first moment of just seeing like some naked woman walking slowly towards them, you're like, what is going on? Like, what is this thing?
It's inherently scary.
And they do it, and they cover it a lot, at least at night, in like shadows where you don't really see all of it, which is really another good thing that they do. But even I love that there's even daytime stuff is frightening too, because it's happening in broad daylight, and to frame a scary scene like that during the day doesn't always work. But usually, if a director's really good, at selling it, and this guy he really sold the tension of like the situation they were in. I also, got to give props to Maika Monroe. I mean, everyone's good in the movie.
She really like Paul. I think he did a great job. Paul and Greg did a great job. I also love the sister. They were all uniform. I thought they were all uniformly.
Yeah, they're all really uniformly good. I mean, Maika Monroe has to do a lot of heavy lifting.
She carries the whole movie. Yeah,
and I think that feeling of like they sell well too is that feeling of like isolation, where she's like, I'm basically dealing with this alone, and like I want my friends there because they're helping me, but I feel like I'm also putting them in some kind of danger by even being around them. And I think she sells that really well. And that's another scary part of the movie too. Like, if you were going through what she was going through, you'd be completely alone. Like, you would just like, I don't, like, you're not seeing what I'm seeing, and like you want them to, but you can't. And trying to explain that to them, and I thought she really sold that really well without coming off like completely like unhinged. Like, you couldn't like relate to her.
Yeah, I think that was you believe her, you also feel sad for her, but you're also like, hey, like, how can we help? And it's like there really isn't a way when this thing's invisible. Like, I don't know. I feel like the pool scene at the end, when they're trying to basically electrocute it. I don't know. I feel like the sister Yara, like, what does she contribute? Is she just kind of like along for the ride?
Sorry.
Like, I don't know.
Your delivery on that was great, though.
Also, the most eating I've ever seen in any movie.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of it
all the time. Like, they're eating Twizzlers, they're eating popcorn, they're eating chips, they're eating burgers. I
mean, I guess teenagers would be doing that, though, right? They're again.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, oh God, like every scene, someone's eating something, and I was just thinking about it. I was like, this must have been a nightmare to film for these kids.
Yeah, because dude, anytime any actor will tell you, if you choose to eat something in the scene, and that's your choice, you have to keep doing it over and over and over again. everyone knows the whole like Brad Pitt shrimp cocktail story from like Ocean's 11 because he had to like eat that over and over and over again for Steven Soderbergh, and he was like, I don't know why I made that choice. I shouldn't have because I know I should have known better. But yeah, the kids are like snacking a lot in the
constantly,
movie.
Which makes sense. But it was just an interesting choice that I definitely picked up on.
I think Yara contributes moral support, right? I mean, she's there. It's not
She's
like
eye candy for Greg too. Like everyone, it seems like there's so much sexual tension between.
I think that is like the over. It seems to be in the air a little bit, not just for like the sake of like.
It's also just teenagers.
Teenagers, right?
That might be what they're trying to convey.
Yeah, that their hormones are raging, and like this is what's going on. I mean, it's interesting because in horror movies for forever, sex has always been considered some consequence in horror movies, and it depends on who you believe. Some horror movie directors say that they've never made that their intention. Like, you always hear the story about how like the person that survives is normally the virgin, and the people that usually die are her promiscuous friends.
Yeah.
And John Carpenter said that like I've never looked at it that way. He said the way he framed Halloween was that yes, she had friends who were promiscuous, but that's not why they die. They die because they're busy, like they're with their boyfriends, they're drinking, they're doing something else that they're not paying attention to the danger around them. While Laurie, who's the main character in that movie, doesn't have a boyfriend, she's not having sex, but that's not the reason that she is surviving is because she's a virgin. It's because she is more in tune with what's going on around her because she's not distracted by a bunch of like frivolous things, like they are. But then a lot of people that study horror films think that there is a clear like social commentary thing about like sex has consequences, sex can be deadly, and this is how we're going to convey it.
I think that's like basically the theme of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it. I mean, I was reading. He's a director said that like the first thing that came to his mind, it was like he said he based the movie on recurring dreams he had in his youth about being followed. He said I didn't use those images for the film, but the basic idea and the feeling I use, from what I understand, an anxiety dream. Whatever I was going through at the time, my parents divorced when I was around that age, so I imagine it was something to do with that. And then he said the role of sexual transmission came in later because he wanted some kind of way to show that this could be transferred from person to person.
Damn, but do not let me do Inception in this guy's mind. Like a dream. Like
what dreams are you having to do?
It's like I didn't use the images for my dream. How scary were those? Like those must have been terrifying.
I know. And then honestly too, because I wonder if you were to hear this movie like on paper, would you be like, this works or it doesn't? Because he said that when he was trying to write it, he was like, I feel like I have a good idea, but he felt like describing it didn't sound right. And Maika Monroe said
the same way as the characters, when the characters are trying to describe it to each other, like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and Maika Monroe said the same thing. She was like
they're just walking towards me and like I know it's gonna kill me. It's like, well,
yeah,
okay, like what? Like it doesn't really sound that scary.
Yeah, Maika Monroe said she was like, I like the idea, but I don't know if this is gonna work.
It transmits the screen beautifully.
It does. I mean, I guess on paper, like if you were just to read the plot to someone, it would maybe sound silly. Like it's like, oh, like wait, so is it a ghost that like passes on like through sex? Is that what this is? But it's not even like a ghost either. Like it doesn't even, it's just some supernatural being.
Something. I do love how they didn't really
explain what it was.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad they did too.
That was a good choice.
I mean, best thing that a certain horror movie can do is there's a little ambiguity, and you like I think it dilutes the threat if you describe like where it came from and how it got there. I think there's certain movies that need that. If that's like a big part of the plot, I guess, where it's like, oh, we have to. I mean,
you know what other a relic? That's
well, you know what other. You probably haven't watched this movie, but Smile has a similar thing where
I really want to see that. I really want to see that.
Where there's this thing that's being passed along from person to person, and there isn't really a ton. There is some explanation, and it's not overdone at least. But I like that they're in some of these movies. It's like, oh, I mean, because like, in a normal situation, this would get dropped in your lap, and you wouldn't know what it is. If it did happen in real life, you were like, I don't know where this is coming from.
Yeah,
I have no idea what this thing is. So I'm glad that they didn't, and I don't think he was ever tempted to explain it either.
I say is like I feel like the deaths weren't really explained in the scope of like what people were feeling. Like when Greg died, no one really said anything. Yeah, like they were just like kind of cops at their house, and that was it. Yeah. Like It's like, wouldn't a kid being murdered, like, and also like the first girl, like, do we know who she was? Like, was that a big moment? Like, I was expecting there to be like missing posters or like people talking about like,
Yeah.
hey, this woman just got this girl just got killed. Like, you guys got to be careful. But there was nothing of that.
I kept wondering when they didn't quite look like the girl, and I don't know for sure if this is. I would have to look it up. You know when they found the picture of the guy from high school and he was posing with
was
the
that his
girl,
girlfriend?
and I was like wondering if it was her, but kind of looked like it could be, but I wasn't really paying attention to it.
It was such
But
a
yeah, you're
quick
right.
shot. It was such a
It's
quick
really,
shot.
yeah, a really quick one. So I was like, I don't even know if this is. Oh, and I also added to the fact that he's an asshole. He didn't even give his real name. So like, yeah, he was a dick. he like,
Dude, he
just,
moved to a new town,
well,
set up shop in some crack shack,
like, I gotta get rid of this thing.
started dating this girl. But also, like, there was a lot of bit of misogyny where he's like, "Oh, you're a girl; it's gonna be easy.
Oh,
Give it to whoever you want."
That bit of
I had
dialogue.
I had to date you in order to get this, like, to get rid of it.
It is misogynistic, but I'm glad they put that in there because that is what I think most guys would say to a girl if they were trying to explain, like, hey, all you gotta do is have sex with someone and it'll be easy for you because you're a girl and you can have sex with anybody you want. I'm a rough line, but it makes sense in the
It's a tough
in the
one.
grand
It's a tough
in
one.
the grand scheme of the story.
So, on that sense, do you think that, like, what was the whole scene with the boat? Like, did she go out there to have sex with those guys in their little?
I think that's what
speedboat?
she was. Yeah, I think that was the yeah.
But
because
she didn't.
Yeah, and she didn't. Yeah, I don't think she did. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm like wondering. Yeah.
Because, like, to me, I thought that she went out there and just did.
Oh, she might. You know what? She might have done it, and then it's
But then, like,
continued.
then it came and killed them, and then it's still after her.
Yeah,
Like,
it's still
that's what I'm
after her.
wondering.
Yeah, you know what? It did. I do believe it did because there's a that's why there's no set rules for what it can do, right? You
Yeah.
know, it can quickly, even though it moves slow, it could get to the next person, especially if that because they would be unaware of what would be after them.
Yeah.
So it would quickly get rid of them and then just, go back to her because that's what I love too. I love that there is no quick escape from it. There's no
Yeah.
like, okay, if I have sex with this person, then
There's
I'm free.
residuals.
Then I'm free. Like, no, like you would have to make sure like you had sex with someone, and like you also have to make sure that that person knows, like, okay, you can't die either, so you need to pass
So
this on.
that's why I thought, like, when they went to go see Jeff, I thought that they were gonna go and track back the original, like,
Oh, where it
recipient.
came from.
I thought that that's where it was gonna go.
Well, I guess the thing is, like, you wouldn't even know. That's the scary part too. Is like, how far does this go before?
Yeah,
I mean,
because
we've
even Jeff was like, "Yeah, I had sex with this girl, one night stand. Don't even
a
know
one
her
night
name."
stand at a bar, yeah, and didn't even know her name. So I mean, that's the scary part too. Is that it's been spreading for
Sex is dangerous.
Sex is dangerous, guys. Don't have sex.
Don't
That's
have
what-
sex because
that's
you
what
could be followed by an entity that will murder you. And
That's what.
fuck you.
That's what. Yo, you know what? Greg, that scene is. First of all, that's supposed to be his mom, right? I mean, it's supposed to look like his mom in the hallway or whatever.
Yeah.
And that scene's unsettling too when she's like knocking, and then like Jay's like yelling at her, and she turns and just looks for a second, and then goes back to like knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And then the whole like when he opens the door, like, oh mom, what the fuck? And then when she just jumps on him, I'm like, well, I don't think they're gonna show it. They've been pretty restrained so far about not showing anything. And you know what? I think they showed just enough to like let you know like what it was doing to him and like how it killed him.
Yeah.
It was just enough.
Just enough.
Creepy would have to have the face of his his mother.
Yeah,
but
being killed by a naked mom is-
you make your mom is not. No, it's not. It's like that was brutal.
Yeah.
But I thought the scene itself was pretty well done. I do agree with you though that it kind of gets like pushed under the rug after that. It's just I think it was just a good scary scene.
They're
And
just
then
like,
it
yeah,
doesn't
like,
really-
and then Paul's like, "Why'd you pick Greg?" I'm like, dude, he's dead. Dude, he's fucking dead, man.
there's all the coming of age aspects of the story of like kind of like crush and unrequited love and
Yeah.
I've had a crush on you this long and like, oh, remember when I used to like sleep over here? We haven't done this in so long.
But like,
Like-
what do you think? What do you think she meant? Where it's like, oh, now I'm not allowed to sleep over here. It's because they grew up and like he's just a boy going through puberty. Or
Yeah,
like,
I think
it kind of made it seem like he has done something in the past.
Well, I think that is what it was, and I don't think he did anything like massively inappropriate. I just think that they got older, and it was very clear that like he was interested more than just being a friend, and that's why the sister says what she says about him staying over. Where she's like, "No, like you have to worry about him humping your leg, or like, you know, okay, you can stay over, but make sure you lock your door. You know, I don't think he did anything incredibly awful. They wouldn't be hanging.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be hanging out with him. I think it's just like they know.
No,
that, like,
he's obviously their good friend, but it's like the way that line was delivered made it seem like he has done something in the past to like lose their trust.
Yeah. No, I think he just got older, and they're like, oh,
They're like, we can't have a 13-year-old boy staying in a house with two 13-year-old girls.
Yeah, like that's not gonna fly at all. But still, I mean, likable. I mean, they're all pretty likable. I mean, that's a kind of a rare feat.
Every character's likable. Yeah, everyone is. Yeah,
it's usually a rare feat in a horror movie. Usually, there's someone you're like, oh, can't wait for that person to like.
But also, it did kind of give me a little bit of a bring it back to the Better Luck Tomorrow, where it's like there's no parental, like,
yeah, the sense of parents is very like lost,
and it's like they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna go away for the weekends, like for 3 or 4 days, like stealing people's cars, taking people's cars, going somewhere for in the dead of night. Like, aren't these parents worried about where their kids are?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question, and because that's like that in this, and it's like that in Better Luck Tomorrow, where that's why it makes you forget, like, oh, these kids are in high school.
Yeah, it's like these kids are not like, I mean, yes, they're in college, they probably have a little bit more freedom. That's why I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt for that, where they're like, they can kind of do what they want. They're out of high school. They're a little bit more independent, but like, gosh, they're just going all over the city, just like randomly without telling anybody
what's going on.
Yeah. So, and I love how Jay repays Greg by stealing his car and crashing it into a cornfield by having sex and passing the curse. I love how that was her repayment.
Yep. And she's like, all right, well, I'll do this. I want to ask you,
but you can see the monster if you'd like.
You fucking me now.
Seriously.
I want to know if you thought about this. You know how after they have sex, and it's the whole like, have you seen it yet? Like, have you seen anything yet? And he kept saying no, no, no. Do you think that he was lying because he didn't want her to, like, you know, like, to freak her out, or do you think he really hadn't seen it yet?
I don't think he'd seen it yet
because he's denied it a few times, right?
Like, he was sitting in a room, he was at home, he was checking in with them. Like, obviously he wanted to see her,
right?
So it's like, I really don't think he had, and I'm wondering if, because the way that I interpreted that was like, maybe it was like recovering from its wounds from the gunshot, and like it was taking its time to like heal a little bit and then come after them again at full strength. That's just the way that I kind of thought about it, where it's like, yeah, it's taking its time, it's biding its time, and then it'll come back in full strength. But also, like, I know you kind of mentioned this already, but like the guy who's standing on top of the roof. First of all, how did he get?
It's a creepy
moment there. And then also, like, I'm just imagining the casting call where it's like, okay, we need like an older gentleman who's willing to stand on a roof naked for about 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's it. That's your part.
Line them up.
I guess they don't really have to explain how they got up there because this is like a supernatural whatever. And
but it walks. Like, it's not like it has to break windows to get in places.
That's true. Yeah, and there was like,
why would it be up there?
Yeah, that's a good question.
For surveillance? I don't know.
Unless they just wanted a cool shot just to show, because they use that shot. They use that shot in they actually use that shot in the trailer. They blur it. They don't show it, but they use that shot in the trailer.
You can't see it a little bit from a distance.
So. This is, yeah. I do like that. It's interesting because they give this thing kind of like a weakness too, which I think is cool, where it's not just like, there are ways, like you said, ways around it. Like, you can figure out a way to get away from it. It's still going to come after you, like, no matter what. Like, it's not going to stop, but it has limits. Like, it can't just like do whatever it wants in order to get you. And I thought that was cool.
It didn't go into the pool. Is it scared of water? I would have gone on the boat.
Oh yeah, it's true. So, do you think they should have made the rules more clear about what this thing could do and what it couldn't do?
No, I think it was very scary, because it's like, you can't stay on a boat forever. So it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you really can't just like hide away forever. And I think that's one of the best things about it, is like, you can lock yourself in your room for as long as you want and be scared, but you have to run at some point and face it. Like, even the ending shot where like they're walking, there's someone following them.
Yeah, so that's the ending of the movie, because, you know, she sleeps with Paul, and
which doesn't, it looks,
and they think they beat it, right? And they're like, okay, we did it, I think. and then they have sex.
He's also driving around trying to find hookers to like pass it along to.
Also pass it along to.
He drives past these two and he's like, nah.
Yeah. I love the ambiguity of the ending too, because that, like, okay, did they get around it? Did they beat it? And
I don't think they did. No, for sure.
And that figure walking behind them is like, it's almost like
out of the same sense.
It almost looks like it's like out of focus at first, and like you kind of like don't see it at first. And I mean, that gives me the impression that it's just not over. There's no way to really beat it unless you're willing to just.
I mean, a gunshot to the dome isn't going to kill it. So I think that's case in point.
I mean, also, there's no way to beat this unless you play safe. Like you can't.
Unless you just have sex with someone else.
You can't but also too, if you happen to be the person that doesn't have it yet, right? And in her situation with this guy, she didn't really know him all that well, Jeff. She slept with him. So I guess like a lot of meaning of the story too is like, don't be in this situation if you aren't reckless with, your body, like what you do with it.
I thought it was a great high school sex scene. And I know that sounds weird to say. I never thought I'd say that sentence
ever. First time.
It was really well done, where it's like they're kind of kissing on the beach and then she's like, let's go back to the car. Like I thought that was really
shot. You know what? It's shot so well that they used it for the movie. They used it for the movie poster, so that it's like the faraway shot of them in the car is the cover art for most of the movie.
It's really good. It's really well done.
I mean, I love even if the director is like, the sex stuff came later, this is more about like me feeling anxiety from just being followed by something. I mean, he has to know about the kind of like horror movie tropes about sex and what they kind of mean within the genre.
I mean,
and then
and
then not to do it in a typical way where it's just like, oh, that girl's the slut and she's gonna die. Let's make it.
Nudity is not from the sex; it's from the entity itself.
The entity itself, yeah. And I love, and this is a more realistic way to almost say that sex equals death. I mean, if you aren't safe, if you're kind of reckless about it.
Sex actually is freedom because you pass it along.
But you can still die. I mean, I mean, you can still completely die if especially if you're the one that is like engaging in it and you don't have it yet. Like, so you have to make sure that like there's this whole thing about like, hey, the first time you do it, like trusting this person, like what do you know about them before you do it? And the movie has a lot to say about that without really being like kind of heavy-handed with it, but it's just, it is what it is. That's how this thing spreads, because like he had a one night stand at a bar and that's how he got it. And that's how he got it. It really does sound like we're talking about like fucking herpes or something rather than.
But it also is like, I mean, it really puts Jeff's actions into perspective, because it's like, he isn't just going to do this and pass it off to someone else. He's like, listen, like I had to do this. I didn't want to, but I'm going to give you, I mean, he's saving his own skin. He's basically setting himself up for success to make sure that he doesn't die again, like he doesn't get followed again. So it's like, but that scene is terrifying when he's with the flashlight and the thing just walks right by him, and he's like, you see her, right? Like she's coming for you now.
Yeah.
Like,
that was freaky.
I will say this was a great choice, man. Like this did scare me.
Oh, good, man. I was like, because I couldn't tell it would be like a scary one. I knew it would be like, it's well written and very well acted, and I mean, all of his shots are just so.
There's so much tension. The way, like, and also like the shot where she's about to lean, like she's leaning over the pool to see if like he's really dead. Like, there's all of these expectation shots where it's like you're gonna find something, and that's where I immediately turn my head, where I'm like, well, I don't know if I can see it.
A lot of this movie, you're like, should I mean, I know I'm supposed to be focused on their conversations, but like the way he frames everything and the way he's framed the entire movie, like I feel like you can't even like really focus on them just talking, because you're like,
no,
I feel like something's
going to happen. Walking towards you.
I'm like, I feel like something's going to happen, even during this like mundane discussion about like, what do you see, like all this kind of stuff. Like, every moment, like from the opening to the end, is filled with some kind of tension, and it's just like the atmosphere he creates is. I've always preferred like atmospheric horror films over like gore and
like Saw.
So I mean, like I appreciate like the first Saw is good, at least because the twist ending makes that movie work as well as it does. But once you get to the sequels, and it's just all about like how many different ways can we show people
getting eviscerated?
And I like Hostel, but it's like at the end of the day, it's just like I rather have, what's lurking in the dark is scarier to me than something like that, than something
Yeah.
gory and something being thrown in my face.
Well,
And
also
like,
something
and then
that's
also what you
something
don't
that's
see,
something that you can kind of run away from, but you can never legitimately
the
leave.
escape.
Like
Yeah,
that's really scary. It's a
I mean,
really scary moment.
I think that was my whole thing watching it is when I saw it the first time, I was like, how do you end this? Like, are they going to go for like a typical Hollywood ending where like, oh, we killed it, we beat it, we got through it, and that would have been safe? But like, this movie feels like it's not trying to be safe, really.
No.
So like, there's that whole like the whole time I was watching it, I was like, I don't know how you are going to end this, but also I'm like rooting for all these characters because you like them, like you like every single one of them. You don't want to see anything happen to them. And I think that's interesting that like, yeah, there isn't high body count. A lot of people you love don't really die, but there is they're in a sense of danger where that is looming for them though. Even with the end of the movie, you're like, okay, they got through it, but when you see what's walking, you're like, not going to. I mean, that's what I was left with is like, there's no way to get around it anymore for them.
I will say, anyone walking towards me now, I'm going to be a little bit more wary.
Yeah, they're just staring at you.
Staring at me walking towards me, I'm going to have some
something to say.
Interesting thoughts. I think the scariest character was that tall,
that one got you, man.
God,
you're nightmares about him.
Fucking freaky.
You're gonna have fucking nightmares about him now.
God, good luck
to
see tonight.
It's the sunken eyes, how tall it was, and then the stomping.
So
it was like everything about that was
looming,
just like it came out of nowhere. And and I love how it's shot too, because of course the girl that's in front of him can't know that it's there.
Yeah,
and just her being completely unaware, and then Jay being like, "Why don't you see that?" Like,
it's kind of like original Slender Man kind of stuff. Like,
yeah,
that's yeah.
I mean, I know I brought it up earlier about how like I feel like I would if I was in this situation, and I felt my friend was like, "All right, see something is clearly real to you. I'll do what I can to like help you out." Like, what would you kind of be like in that situation? Would you be like, "All right, I don't sound crazy," or would you kind of look in?
It's so tough because it's like, especially when it's someone that you trust and someone that you care for and someone that you have a lot of memories with. It's like, I feel like I would believe them, and I would just be like, okay, like walk me through it. Tell me what you see. Like, I feel like I'd be more like Paul. Like, Paul is probably the best way that I would describe how I would act, where it's like, you're a little bit cautious. You're like, hey, there's nothing here. It's fine. Like, yeah, someone did break the window, but like that was real. But everything else that you said, like, there's no one in the kitchen. There's no one.
I like how he explains that too, where they're kind of like, well, there's nothing here. And then he really just like, well, someone did do that. Like someone did break the window.
So that is real. That is real. So like, that is something you should be worried about. And that's why I'm here. But like, I mean, obviously he's the one who gets knocked backwards and breaks the chair over.
That's why he's like, all right, something fucking hit me.
he's like, dude, like this is real. Like that. Yeah. If that doesn't prove anything to you, then you're an idiot. So I think like, that I would be mostly in Paul's position in this case.
Yeah, I think I would kind of be there too. I mean, I think I'd be a little reluctant, but like, I'm like, I'm here for you if you need it. Because again, if someone really feels that they see something like that and it's real to them, and clearly it's like unsettling them that much that it has to be, even if it is from a place of like, oh, you must be mentally messed up right now.
Yeah.
Try to find a way to help them, even if it was like, I don't believe that you're seeing what you're seeing. I don't necessarily think I would say that either. I'm just like, all right, let's try to.
But like seeing it from Greg's perspective, where just like everyone's having a good time, you're having some beers on the beach, and then this girl steals your gun and starts firing it at you, and there's like an open doorway, and you're just what the fuck are you doing? Like,
I thought she totally was gonna shoot him. I thought that was gonna be how he died.
I thought he was about to get immediately capped.
I was like, oh, that's how he gets murdered.
Yeah,
I think I would be in Paul's position too. But I do like that even all the friends are still like there though, even if they aren't 100% behind it. They're there to help her, because there is a really interesting, serious kind of dichotomy there too, where Jeff drops her off from the distance, and then he's looks like such an awful scene too, even though he says something to help her, like gives her one more thing that she can do, like remember to do this, and then he just speeds off. And the next image you see of her is like on the ground. She's not fully dressed, half naked. And there's like so many implications that go along with that too, like what that scene says. Like,
and I mean, hear from the cops, it's like it was consensual,
right? Yeah. And like then seeing that from her friend's perspective, like what did this guy do to her?
Do to you? What happened?
Yeah, like Yeah, so there, I mean, there's a lot of layers. And that's why I like the movie so much. It's like there's more to like why this is there is the real world part of it that's scary. Like, oh, this guy, he raped her. Like, what did he do?
Yeah.
And then there's this whole like horror movie part of it where it's like, no, there's this thing and it's after, after her now. And yeah, I mean, I love that it has a lot to say without kind of jamming it down your throat.
With not many words either.
Yeah. There's not like, I mean, the best thing about it is it doesn't go like, this is the message. Like, I mean, you can interpret it like, all right, I know what they're getting at, but they're not saying like, don't do it. Just, I think there is a message in there to be like, you can, but you have to be careful about how you do it and how you do it. Well, yeah, how you do it and how you do it and who you do. Yeah, there you go. Same sex. How you do it and who you do it with. I think that's another underlying message in the movie too.
Yeah.
And I think this movie does it way better than a lot of horror movies to imply that like, sex is a awful thing to do in these
sex
movies.
Is bad, guys. We promote abstinence here on Back to the Blockbuster.
Well, it's crazy. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy that horror movies do that. Like, they really like more than any genre have been like, hey, like sex is, sex can equal this. It like it can be
death.
Yeah, it's never really like, they kind of reverse it in Scream where the Sydney's a virgin and then Billy, who ends up being the guy who's killing everyone, has sex with her first to make her not one, and then she ends up surviving the movie. She breaks that kind of like horror movie trope that like the girl who has sex dies. She doesn't. She makes it, and she's made it through 5 of them. So that's there is a flip on the script sometimes, but it's really interesting that. Also interesting that some directors are like, nah, I don't view it that way, and others are like, yeah, I can see it. Like I mean,
every director should know.
Yeah,
at this point,
there are like a lot of film studies at school that like go into it deep about how horror movies treat sex and how horror movies treat women too. There are a lot of critics that think that horror movies are misogynistic against women, but then there are a lot of even women who are like, no, because like the person who usually survives at the end is a woman. It's usually a strong woman too. It's not always, it's rare that you have a final guy. That's why they call it the final girl. It's usually a girl that makes it to the end. But there are some people that think because the way horror movies kind of promote nudity and all that stuff with women that it has like misogynistic undertones, and maybe some do and maybe some don't. But I've always looked at it as usually the main person that you're rooting for and the main person that makes it to the end is always a woman usually, and they're not stupid. They're pretty strong-willed. If they're written well, of course, in these movies, they have a lot more going on.
Cunning.
Yeah. So I guess it'll be a debate forever for people who love the horror genre. Like, is it misogynistic? Is it not? Yeah. What does it say about
It's not
society?
The end of the conversation.
Definitely not. And, more than any genre, I think horror movies have a ton of social commentary that, horror fans appreciate. I don't think film snobs still turn their nose up like, oh, this is what it's trying to say. But usually it's really smart. They're really commenting on like a lot that's going on in society and with people. All of them go deeper than just like blood and guts. So, and this is a good example of one that does.
Fantastic example.
I'm glad you went in blind. I was like, did he watch the trailer first? Like, what did he do? I was like, you just went in
blind.
And that's how I think you should do it. I mean,
it was great, man. It was great. It was a great pick. I thought that this is a great choice to enter into the Back to the Blockbuster horror realm. It's a good choice. It makes me want to choose a horror movie for my next one.
I kind of wonder what kind of horror movie you would pick.
Woo!
Oh yeah, because like you're not like a huge like horror guy. I mean, you like some of them.
The thing is, I like it, but I get scared.
Like the one, like the one. See, I want to watch them, but I'm a bitch.
Yeah, but I need to watch it at like 12 in the afternoon with the lights on and the sun still up.
Or the blinds just up.
Yeah.
Sun shining in. You can like barely see your TV because the sun's hitting your TV.
Exactly.
And you like watch. Man, I love horror movies, and there's still some horror movies I still watch like this. I can't. Oh
gosh!
Like the anticipation.
When I saw it in theaters, I was like, I literally was like, down.
I was like that. I was like that during The Strangers. There's like a lot of that movie made me uncomfortable and just like I can't like I don't know what's happening next, but I don't know if I want to see it.
Someone gonna die.
So someone gonna die, yeah. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what kind of horror movie you would pick. But I would watch it with you, so like you would be like too scared. This was a good entry, I think, for like trying to pick
perfect.
It's not too scary. It's just more of the atmosphere and like what you're actually seeing.
Yeah.
And I guess we can give a little facts about the movie. I like how you said that they must have ate this up at the Cannes Film Festival because of all the nudity and stuff. But they enjoyed it there. We were at the Cannes Film Festival on May 17th, 2014. It's crazy. This movie was almost 10 years old.
Wow.
Initially, they were going to give it a straight to video release until the reception it received at Cannes, and then company bought it and they opened it in limited release and gave it like a brief wide release, but it was enough for the movie to eventually make $23.3 million worldwide on a very slim $1.3 million budget.
Good stuff.
So it made its money back. The real surprise for people was how critically acclaimed it was. It has a 95% on
Rotten Tomatoes. I saw that.
Yeah. Consensus says it's smart, original, and above all terrifying. It follows
it's super original. I love it.
Yeah, like It Follows is the rare modern horror film that works on multiple levels and leaves a lingering sting. It's considered by a lot to be. I gotta try to remember all the horror films that came out in the 2010s, but a lot of people think this is either the best one or one of the best one to come out during that time period.
Didn't Insidious come out around that area?
Came out in 2010, right on the dot. 2010. I think that would be one of the best ones too. I actually liked Insidious a lot.
I thought that one was always like,
yeah, it's good, and it's Sinister is in there too. I think that's
Sinister,
a really
that
solid...
one made a shit ton of money. Ooh, Shutter Island is in there.
Some decent ones in there in the 2010s.
Ooh, there's also some
stinkers.
Yes, a lot of bad ones.
You guys can't see his face, but he was like, ooh. Never mind. Also very rare for horror movies to 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's like unheard of. And sometimes when horror movies do get really good reviews, a lot of casual moviegoers don't like them because they're like, oh, that was more artsy than scary. But I think this one caught on with a lot of people that didn't think it was too artsy and thought it was genuinely creepy. And they also said,
I just searched 2012 horror movies and I got Hotel Transylvania. I don't think that qualifies.
Well, that's scary in its own way, right?
Yeah, gosh, yeah, you're right.
That's
I mean, there's definitely like, I mean, after searching some of these, like, I definitely think that it has the. Yeah, I mean,
it could have.
Evil Dead came out in 2013.
That's a good. The remake's really good.
2013.
That'd be a good one to throw. That'd be a good one to throw a poll. Oh, that was a toss up. I mean, I like the second one.
Yeah.
There's some good ones. That'd be a good poll.
Some good ones, but this one's definitely up there.
Yeah, that'd be a good poll to ask people if they think this is the best horror film of the 2010s.
Yeah,
and kind of see what they say, and if they give us a different.
Or just say like, or another poll where it's like, hey, if not, then what is your favorite?
What was it? 2010s, yeah.
Yeah.
And like
Annabelle came out then too. Sorry.
No, you're good. No, I saw that. I saw that in theaters, and there's a moment in the opening that it's not even scary. It's a cheap fucking jump scare. But I was like like holding the box, like we poured some of the popcorn in the box, and I was like trying to adjust myself, and then like the thing happened, and it dropped it all over.
We're like, oh,
I dropped it all over the floor, and my friends were like, "What the fuck, dude?" I was like, "I know, this is like the first like 5 minutes." So yeah, that's the one thing I remember about that movie is that dropped popcorn all over the floor. We said It Follows has sparked numerous interpretations from film critics in regard to the source of it and the film's symbolism. Critics have interpreted the film as a parable about HIV and AIDS, other sexually transmitted infections, and social perceptions thereof.
This is not about AIDS.
The sexual revolution, primal anxieties about intimacy, and post-Great Recession economic anxiety. The director said, "I'm not personally that interested in where it comes from. To me, it's dream logic in the sense that they're in a nightmare, and when you're in a nightmare, there's no solving the nightmare, even if you try to solve it." And he also said that while Jay opens herself up to danger through sex, the one way in which she can free herself from that danger, we're all here for a limited amount of time, and we can't escape our mortality. But love and sex are two ways in which we can at least temporarily push death away. I think it's interesting.
It's a great response.
The HIV/AIDS thing might be a little.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I get the whole like STD and passing it. Like, I mean, I don't think
that's a journalist looking for a connection.
a much bigger connection. And let's see, we have some fun facts. Time frame of the movie is intentionally kept undefined so that it resembles a dream. Some of the cars shown are from more recent times. Many appear to be from the 60s to late 80s. Early CRT television sets are shown whenever the characters are watching movies.
Yeah,
Conflicting
I saw
technology.
that.
Yeah, conflicting technology includes Ara on a device that looks like a shell compact, but she reads it from like an ebook reader and uses it as light source at one point. Also, the girl at the beginning of the film uses a cell phone and drives a modern automobile with several modern vehicles in view. That's actually kind of cool that like the kind of making the time where it takes
Yeah,
place
yeah.
it's not really set accordingly.
It's like from
Uh,
memory. It's like there's memories from like old times and current.
yeah, that's cool. Film was shot entirely in the state of Michigan for tax advantages. That's why it was shot in Michigan.
$1 million
And then,
budget, baby.
yep, yeah, that's how you do it. May and Kelly's mother's face is never clearly shown. In the first scene in which she appears in the film, she is seen talking on the phone in the kitchen with her face completely covered by her hair. In every other scene, her face is either out of focus or partially cut by the frame, also suggesting another dream aspect of the film. That's interesting too. Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
Not only do the set props prevent the viewer from placing the year, the clothing prevents the viewer from placing the time of year. Throughout the film's short duration, clothing ranges from coats, jackets, t-shirts, and swimsuits during the day to barely anything at all at night, all outdoors with no signs of discomfort.
Mm.
That's cool too. Yeah.
I like the dream. I didn't really get that, but now that I hear that fact, like I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, let's see if there's anything else. The trailer, there were a few scenes that had to be reshot, which the is shown in the nude. We mentioned that earlier. In the
Yeah.
trailer, the he was shown to be wearing underwear on the roof, not so. You get a full distant dong. Watch the actual
dong.
if you watch the actual movie. Film was supposedly more violent in the initial scripts. They were all toned down, secure, soft R rating. That's good.
Just a soft R.
Well, it didn't need to be. It didn't need to be overly.
It didn't need it. It's a job.
Robert Mitchell started writing the screenplay in 2011. It didn't come out until 2014. Wow, he spent a lot of time with it then. It's crazy. And on Tomatoes ranked this film as the 6th most praised film of 2015 because it didn't get a release in the States until 2015. And yeah, that's there's some other ones in here. Oh, Mike Laner, this plays the very tall the one you are afraid of.
Yeah.
Is a 6'7" Detroit resident who designs engines for General Motors and is one half of the world's tallest twins. There you go.
My God.
So, not as scary now if you know.
Fuck that motherfucker.
oh man.
Scary ass dude.
Okay. Yeah, in an interview with Vulture in which he was explaining the reasoning behind the group's seemingly childish plan to lure the creature leading up to and during the final confrontation, director David Robert Mitchell insinuated that they're just kids trying to find a way to defeat the threat in their own way. It's the stupidest plan ever. He knows it's a kid movie plan. It's something that Scooby-Doo in the game might think of. And that was sort of the point. What would you do if you were confronted by a monster and found yourself trapped within a nightmare? Ultimately, you have to resort in some way of fighting it that's accessible to you in the physical world and that's not really going to cut it. He said, we kind of avoid any kind of traditional setup for that sequence because in more traditional horror films, there might be a clue that would lead them to figure out a way to destroy the monster. I intentionally avoided placing those. Instead, they do their best to accomplish something and we witness its failure. It's probably a very non-conventional way of approaching the third act confrontation, but we thought it was a fun way to deal with it. And
I like that.
Is true.
I like that a lot.
I think that's cool, actually, the way he handled it. And you know what? Since this movie, big breakout, Maika Monroe has done a lot since then. Not all of it great. She was in Independence Day Resurgence in 2016. She was in a movie called The Watcher, which is also very good. It came out in 2022. She's in a movie called The Guest that came out the same year as It Follows. Jackson and I mentioned this to you. We were doing, I think, the John Wick episode. The Guest is a really solid movie too that might get used on the show one day.
Yeah,
it's actually pretty good. And she was only born in 1993, so she's only 30. And David Robert Mitchell, I would think that he would have done a lot following this, but he did after It Follows. He did in 2018 a movie called Under the Silver Lake with Andrew Garfield. He hasn't had anything since then, which is crazy to me. That someone with this much talent, really go on.
Yeah,
like,
throwing
really
it back. Maika Monroe is Beach Girl in Bling Ring.
And the bling ring, yeah, Jackson brought that up. I was like, I didn't even notice that she was there. I was like, good eyes, Jackson, on that. And Jake Weary, he played, I think, believe Jeff on Chicago Fire. Oh, and Animal Kingdom. That is what I recognize him from. He has long hair on Animal Kingdom. That's why I didn't recognize him. He's also on that show. Also a very good show as well. But yeah, that was It Follows. I think
Good pick, man. Good pick.
Glad that got that one in. I'm glad that you liked it and enjoyed it.
I did.
And as it's after watching it again, for this, I was like, this is one of my, I think, recent years, one of the best horror movies. I still gotta, if it is the best one of the 2010s.
Yeah.
I gotta really go back and look, but it's certainly, if maybe not the best, it's probably maybe the most creative.
It's the most original.
Yeah, could very well be the case. Yeah, I guess there's time for questions at the end. Since you're letting us deep dive movies, we're gonna deep dive with you in our lives a little bit. So I'm gonna pull some of these off of the Twitter page and see what we got for Owen. And this is from Vintage Video Podcast on Twitter. They would like to know, it was cool hearing your brother on the Disconnect episode. Will we hear him on any other future episodes? Is he interested in being on again?
Ooh. Wow. First of all, fantastic question. TBD. I think that it would be great to have him on. I'd love to have him on for something that maybe we could pick together. Maybe a few episodes down the road. I'd love that. Yeah, because his insights are just like mine. I mean, he's a genius when it comes to figuring some stuff out and seeing some plots and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that is definitely not off the table. I think he would love to do it again, and should have him on.
Yeah, and if you listen to that episode, he gets better throughout it. Like, he has more to say.
I mean, he was finding his footing to start. He was kind of figuring it out. I think if we have him back again, he'd know exactly what to do.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I actually had some really good insights to the movie as they went along. I thought he was really good. Yeah, we've had a limited amount of guests. I get messages a lot about having more guests on, and Carl, his brother, that was just a timing thing. He was in town. It made sense. It's his brother. It's his twin brother. It's his family. So that makes sense. Jackson makes sense because he's already a part of the team. It just still feels like a little early to
too new. It still feels too new
to bring other people on. But I know a lot of people are very interested in doing it, and they're like, just tell me what movie it is and I'll do it.
They're dying to be a part of it.
I really don't adjust to it. I would love to do it more frequently down the road. I just think this is only episode 13, and I think once it gets further down, that'd be completely good.
It's gonna happen.
This question is for me from Critical Overlord. Have you
learned Overlord
on Twitter? Have you learned anything from listening to other people's podcasts?
It's a good one.
Yeah, I would say I have, because I kind of was blind doing this and didn't really listen to a ton, and now I listen to a lot. And now I have to, and it's not just movie ones. I listen to a bunch of different ones now, and I have to. It's interesting because you hear good ideas and you're like, that's a great idea, and you're like, how do I do that without stealing it? Yeah, how do you twist it around and make it yours? Totally do. I will say this: the one big one, and I gave him credit for it. I mentioned it before. It's how to promote them now, and I got that from Mark J. Parker from Release Date Rewind. Is you don't just promote it the day it comes out. You do it for the whole week. There's different posts, different aspects of the episode that you promote, because there's always someone new that is going to discover it on a different day. And that's something I clearly took from him, because if you follow his page, he is still promoting his Jurassic Park episode, and that was 2 weeks ago. I do it for a week because we also have a lot more episodes to deal with. But it's educated me on how to do it and how to make it interesting. It always doesn't have to be clips of us. It can just be what we're dealing with. I pulled interview clips from, I did it for Good Time.
I've loved those posts, man.
Where it's it doesn't always have to be us. And I do want it to be us more, of course, but it's
everything is about the movie.
Yeah. And it keeps the discussion going about the movie. And usually the clip is something, if it isn't something that we pulling from the episode, it's something that we talked about in the episode. It's not just a random movie clip or a random interview that doesn't make sense. But that is what I have learned. I have learned a lot from him in regards to promoting it, and I have fun doing it now, promoting it. It's a lot. It's doesn't feel like work because it's actually like, oh, I think
Yeah.
this might like you see, and when you see like, I was telling you about the reels and how well they've been doing, I'm like, actually want to do it more. Like, okay, how do I make this
Make
better?
something that
And like,
people want to hear.
yeah, exactly. So that is what I have learned, and I've listened to a lot of people's podcasts now. Usually now, if I can't fall asleep from just watching something, I will now just fall asleep listening to something like that, and it's actually really good. Not that what I'm hearing is boring. I know that probably sounds bad, but it's like you
No,
just
no, no, no. I totally understand what you're saying.
but you like you soak it all in, like when you're
Yeah.
like listening to it like that. And then the question for both of us, I just had her. Let me see from Mr. Wholesome. I gotta open this wider. Sorry. Boom. Alrighty. Yeah. No, this isn't really this is more of like a comment on the episode. It's actually pretty positive. What I enjoyed listening to you on your good time episode was the fact that Owen had an idea of what the scene with the security guard meant, and then you realize what that scene could have meant based on Owen's reaction. Isn't so much a question, just an observation of your conversation during that episode. I thought that was really cool, and is why it's really interesting to listen to you guys talk about movies. That's cool. That kind of
I mean, that's literally the podcast for me. Is like that's literally what it is for me. It's like we talk about things and like you will say something. I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't see it from that lens. That makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, like that's what I love about it because we have such similar ideas, but also very different viewpoints on what certain things mean. So I think that, like, first of all, thank you for that. That was one of my favorite moments of the Good Time episode. So I absolutely love that comment.
I'll keep it real, man. Right over my head, and when he said it, I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that is what that whole moment could have meant." Like that, especially since that character is just like that and would take advantage of a situation and a person like that, knowing how they can get away with it.
That was a fun episode, man.
I do remember that in real time, being like, "Oh wow, like you saw it so much deeper than I saw it." But I totally understood it what you said it, so that was pretty awesome. Q, that was a good observation. I appreciate it. And the questions are always welcome. I'm going to pull more. We like doing them to the point where Jackson wants to have them on our show too, because I was like, yeah, there are. It is
questions are fun, man.
It is cool getting them from the people that are listening, so we appreciate it. And then one final thing before we wrap up here, because we are recording this on Thursday.
7/6. 7/7's a big day.
7/7 is a big day. You always hear us talk about Playlist, and Playlist is our podcast network that does all of the heavy lifting for us, editing, you're saying audio stuff. You know that the podcast started because they were starting this app that they are really excited about, and they wanted to stockpile shows to be available on their app when it launched. And tomorrow on July 7th, app will finally be launching in 178 countries on all Apple devices. Be able to find the Playlist app now on your Apple devices. They're still working with representatives from the Google Play Store. It could launch tomorrow there, but they have to work out some stuff with the Android platform to get that going. If it doesn't launch on Google Play Store tomorrow, it will be within the coming days. So yeah, you'll be able to stream catalog of podcasts, including ours, ad-free, and you can subscribe to all of your favorite shows, no subscriptions or fees, and you'll be able to get to know a lot of the podcasts family that's on Playlists. There are a lot of other shows. There's actually one other movie show, Cinematic Reel, which is funny because I used to write for their website when they were Real Talk Inc., and I know David Gonzalez really well, so it's cool that he's also in the network now. And they have like a lot of other types of shows too. There's a lot of health and wellness. There's traveling shows on there too. There's another film related one is was at Home, who already has like a big YouTube following already, and he has a podcast there. I was told by the people at Playlist in a conversation that we had that he was inspired to do a spinoff because we did one. So very cool. And
amazing.
Every time
paving the way.
So every time we end
and hey guys out there too, like I got sent the beta to do a little testing run, and it's a fantastic platform. It's amazing.
Yeah,
cannot wait to listen to my podcasts on Playlist, and they just done an insanely good job of putting together something that is going to be just user friendly and good for everyone out there.
Yep. It's very true. So by the time you guys hear this, it will be available for you guys to download the Apple Store. Hopefully, by the time you hear this, it will also be in the Google Play Store because they're still working that out. And this is, after we end the show, whether it's the spinoff or the main one, we are always going to encourage you download the playlist app, listen to us on the playlist app. Of course, it's great if you listen to us anywhere, but the great thing about playlists is that we wouldn't be here without them, basically.
Yeah.
So we want to help them like they've helped us. So you're going to be hearing that at the end of every episode to make sure you get familiar with the playlist app. It doesn't have to be just our show too. Get familiar with all of them on there. There's a lot of really cool stuff there, and they're only growing their network. So get with it on the ground level. It'll be good.
It's going to be great.
I'm excited for them, and I'm excited for us because it's even more exposure being on that platform. So it's a win-win for everyone involved.
Everybody, great partnership.
This little community. And all right, Owen, you can sign us on off.
Oh gosh, Gaius, what a pleasure, man. Always is to talk about some fun movies. Thursdays or Mondays. We had a holiday this week, but thank you guys so much for tuning into Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius. This was our first horror film, and it was a pleasure. I was legitimately scared to that one commenter who said, "Hey, are you going to make something, or are you going to pick something that's actually going to scare him?" Yes, I was legitimately scared. Yeah. So this was a good pick. Always a pleasure, my man, to just talk about some good stuff. And you can find us anywhere that you like to listen to podcasts. Starting tomorrow, please listen to us on the playlist app. That's the best way to get it done now. Pods has always shown us some good love. That's where I currently listen to it until tomorrow. And then I'll be listening to it on the playlist app. Apple Podcasts also continues to be a strong player, but just keep tuning in. We're actually speeding up. We're not slowing down. We got so much more to do, so much to give you guys. And gosh, it is finally my pick next week. I can't wait for my next pick. It's going to be a good one. Glad you guys enjoyed the Good Time episode. That was one of my favorite ones as well. So looking forward to continuing to find some movies that we will talk about, show you guys, and hopefully introduce you to. So guys, stay tuned. We got more coming.
Yep. Peace out, guys. Until next time.